Hey folks, Jordan Chariton. Hope you're having a lovely, lovely Monday. It's cloudy here in New York. I am on YouTube, I am on Periscope, and I am on Facebook. And for you Facebook folks, make sure you press the share button because, Facebook is doing some things. They're definitely doing some things, so make sure you share the content. Make sure you share it everywhere on YouTube, on Facebook, on Periscope. Lot of things to report on, and I also have some swag to show you. So this is a super chat. So we're gonna be very, very appreciative if you leave contributions to the super chat. We also have our GoFundMe going. So I'm excited about that. We're at 11,600. Almost 11, actually, I don't know, something like that, 11,600. So we're even closer to our goal of 15,000 by the end of October. Our overall goal is 50,000, but our little mini goals to get there. So 15,000 by the end of October, and I have something to show you. For all those that have been contributing $100, I keep saying to you, you're going to get a Status Coup hat or shirt. I've shown you the hat. I'm wearing the shirt, but you cannot see it yet. I will show you what this badass shirt looks like. Just going to wait just a couple minutes until, more people come into the audience here.
Here's another one so you show the back.
Yes. So we're gonna show you what the shirt looks like. And again, if you want this badass shirt, $100 in the GoFundMe, get you a shirt or a hat. So, get to the news. Sell your shit later. Well, maybe I have some other things to talk about before I get to news, Mr. Stelios. I don't like your language. The other thing is, exciting news, we just passed 20,000 YouTube subscribers. I launched this channel at the end of February. So, can't thank you guys enough. To the early subscribers, to even think that launching at the end of February that we were going to already hit 20,000 subscribers in 7 months, I probably wasn't thinking that then. So I'm grateful, and to the next 20,000 and on. So without further ado, our first batch of Status Coup shirts have come in. Let me know what you think. Let me see. Let me show you if I'm modeling it well enough for you. There we go. You got the logo. Nice coloring in the flag. So that's the front. And the back. The back is even better. Let me know if you can see that. Giving the microphone back to the people.
Here's a girl one with V-neck.
That's our slogan. And here is a ladies one with V-neck. Maybe it will be a nice gift for my not yet born niece. Here we go. Little ladies edition. In the V-neck. Woo! Very exciting. So, you know the drill. I'll show you I'll put up the GoFundMe a couple more times as we go. Here it is one more time in the super chat. So keep it coming. We're at about 11,600. So appreciate your contributions. $100 gets you a shirt or a hat. 127 gets you both. Now. Oh, men can rock the V-neck too if they want. Absolutely. So we're going to start mailing the first batch of shirts we got to those who have contributed $100 for the shirt or a hat, and to those who have contributed 127, you're getting both. So thank you. Elizabeth Warren. Oh, Elizabeth Warren. This morning, we got alerts that she put out a video. I'm not going to play it. But she put out a video. I guess she went back to Oklahoma, where her three brothers live. They are conservative, apparently. They watch Fox News. And she talked to them about Donald Trump basically defaming her and calling her Pocahontas and these things. And apparently she took the steps of taking a DNA test to prove that she has Native American heritage. And the DNA test showed that, yes, indeed, she does have Native heritage. I believe it was her great-great-great-great-grandmother was part Native American. And, you know, now she's taunting Trump to pay up because Trump had said if she takes a DNA test to prove that she is part Native American, he would pay $1 million. Of course, now he's saying he never said that. So that's great. I think the whole thing is stupid. But obviously, Elizabeth Warren there's a reason she's doing this, and that is because she's 120% running for president. This isn't her formal announcement that she's running for president, but I don't really know why she would go take the steps to do this highly produced video, to go down to Oklahoma, interview her brothers, do the whole song and dance that they're actually conservatives. One watches Fox News, but I took the DNA test. So let's just treat this as Elizabeth Warren has officially announced her run for the Democratic nomination to be President of the United States of America. Now, I have mixed feelings on this. Number one, if it came down to Elizabeth Warren versus President Trump, I would 120% vote for her. That's not because I love her in all aspects. That's not because I think she's the most progressive as far as the progressive spectrum. But this is no Hillary Clinton. So let's not be extreme that just because Elizabeth Warren has done some things you might not like, or didn't endorse Bernie when she should have, and all those things. We can't, if your requirement is 120% perfection, then we're never going to get any change. So, no 120%. If it came down to Elizabeth Warren versus Trump, I wouldn't think twice. I would vote for her. And if you wouldn't, you're a little off. Just keeping it real. With that said, I think if Elizabeth Warren runs, then it begs the question, would Bernie Sanders run if Elizabeth Warren runs? I'm not telling you anything based on, inside sources or anything. This is just my belief. I have had conversations with people like in Bernie's world. I'm not going to give away names, but I did have conversations with people in Bernie's world last year, actually. And essentially, the going thought was, if he doesn't see anyone, especially any progressive, that can win and defeat Donald Trump, he would run. So I don't know if that means if he doesn't see somebody actually progressive that could run and win. I don't know if that means if he doesn't see anyone just in general that could beat Donald Trump. I don't know particularly what that means. But Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders hasn't exactly released the video proving he's, whatever his heritage is. But Bernie Sanders has also done plenty that would bring you to believe he has been building up in preparation for a 2020 run. Bernie Sanders right now, I think he's 76. So one would believe that if Bernie Sanders felt Elizabeth Warren had a chance to defeat Donald Trump, maybe he wouldn't run. I don't have the answers, but I could tell you this. With what I stated true, if it is Elizabeth Warren, no, she's not perfect. I will go through the list of things I have a problem with her in a minute. I think Bernie Sanders should run for president, even if Elizabeth Warren runs. And I do not have a good gut instinct that Elizabeth Warren would defeat Donald Trump. So let me start with why Bernie should run if Elizabeth Warren runs. Yes, and by the way, of course, I'm going to be called sexist by some people. It has nothing to do with her being a woman or a man or whatever. Bernie Sanders has been consistent for 40 years, for more than 40 years. Okay? I don't need to question if Bernie Sanders ever became president, if he's going to do or try to do everything he says. I do not feel 100% certain of that with Elizabeth Warren. She has shown more political traits, including starting to talk to the Clinton campaign as early as 2015, because I think she was angling for a position in the Clinton administration. Secondly, I think Bernie Sanders should run because, to me, the more progressive voices on those debate stages during the primaries, the more progressive voices in the media, the more progressives pushing Medicare for all, free public college, and all those things, the better. Thirdly, bottom line, if Bernie runs and Elizabeth Warren runs, if Elizabeth Warren doesn't win, I would gladly take that ticket of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren as his vice president. Or if Elizabeth Warren beat Bernie Sanders, which I don't think she would, I would take the opposite too. But to me, if I look at a contrast between Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, I think the contrast is a lot clearer with Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. Okay? Bernie Sanders is the only Democratic senator to vote against this insane increase in the defense budget that was just passed. Elizabeth Warren voted for it. Okay? So Bernie Sanders voted against this insane budget, which is the most military spending on top of the already bloated military budget. I think Bernie Sanders has Bernie Sanders has led the effort in pushing for Medicare for all to the point that Medicare for all is now 70% approval rating among the American public, 85% among the Democratic Party, and 52% among Republicans. That don't have anything to do with Elizabeth Warren. I also think Bernie Sanders has already shown his ability to use grassroots pressure as a senator to get the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, to increase the minimum wage for Amazon workers to $15 an hour. So I think it's a pretty damn good campaign slogan. Look what he did as a senator with not a coalition, but just through grassroots public pressure. What could he do as president? So I think Warren has some strong traits. I think economically she is very progressive, equal if not more. Not if not more, but pretty equal to Bernie Sanders as far as taking on the banks, breaking up the banks. I don't think she is as anti-capitalism as Bernie Sanders is. I don't think she would describe herself as a socialist. But Elizabeth Warren has been strong on breaking up the big banks, on tightening regulations, on the fact that Dodd-Frank was a Band-Aid to a gunshot wound. So economically, I believe Elizabeth Warren would be a strong president for progressives economically. As far as the military budget, I haven't seen anything from her that makes me believe she would actually push a dent in that military budget, a dramatic dent. I also have not seen her widely discuss Yemen, which I'm going to get to later, where Bernie Sanders has put forth bills to stop the U.S. involvement and funding of Saudi Arabia in Yemen. I think foreign policy was actually, they say, a rough spot for Bernie in 2016. I don't think foreign policy would be a bright spot for Elizabeth Warren. I also think Elizabeth Warren, it's not going to be a problem to the corporate media, but among progressives, I don't know if as many progressives are going to be excited about Elizabeth Warren, because Elizabeth Warren has showed up for some progressive fights, but she has not showed up for a lot more. I'm talking about Standing Rock. As far as I know, and I was there 7 times, Elizabeth Warren said nothing about Standing Rock. As far as I know, Elizabeth Warren has not been out front sounding the alarm hardcore on climate change. Elizabeth Warren, as far as I know, was not going after Barack Obama when he was president on droning half the world. So, again, if you're coming late to this, I want to be clear. If it came down to Elizabeth Warren versus Donald Trump, I would vote for her in a second. Okay, I don't look at that as a lesser of two evils situation. Elizabeth Warren is 100 times better than Donald Trump. I do not think I don't fear if Elizabeth Warren is president that we'd automatically be at war with Syria, Russia, and God knows who, like Trump, like Hillary Clinton. As far as I know, Elizabeth Warren doesn't have a foundation that she's been funneling money through. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm not saying don't vote for Elizabeth Warren if she ended up being the nominee. But to me, Bernie Sanders is the reason, probably the biggest reason, why you have this progressive energy in this country. Yes, there's been organizing groups, Fight for 15, many other groups. But Bernie Sanders was that catalyst, that spark. And I think if all things are equal, if his health is good and all those things, he should be running. He should be running. Even if Elizabeth Warren is in there. The more progressives, the better. The more progressives, the better. And you know what? I think a ticket of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, whatever way it goes, president or vice president, if she's president, he's vice president, or vice versa, could defeat Donald Trump. What concerns me is her versus Trump, because you have to look at the states that Donald Trump won that were surprising. Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, okay? Well, a lot of those states voted for Trump because of his talk of ending NAFTA, bringing jobs back, and all those things. Bernie Sanders won several of those states in the Democratic primary, Wisconsin and Michigan. Well, is Elizabeth Warren, as far as we know, everything she said was not, she wasn't in Congress during NAFTA or the Senate during NAFTA, but I don't know in my gut. I don't know if Elizabeth Warren is going to convince those Rust Belt states. Trump has been rallying in those Rust Belt states. He did. I don't think it was nearly what it needed to be, but he did redo the NAFTA deal and made it two separate deals, one with Mexico, one with Canada. I think he's going to con the people that voted for him in those states that it's this magically better deal. I don't know if Elizabeth Warren is what tips those states back to the Democrats. I really don't. And let me tell you something. If Elizabeth Warren speaks like an economic populist and an economic progressive for Medicare for all those things, don't think the DNC won't try to rig it against her either. Because man or woman, the DNC, the Democrats, not for an economic populist or progressive. Not for it. So that's what I think. I think Bernie should run. Even if Elizabeth Warren runs, if Bernie doesn't run because she runs, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if she would beat Trump. I also don't know if she would beat Kamala Harris. Because I think if Kamala Harris runs, the Democratic Party is going to be behind her so much so, that Elizabeth Warren, believe it or not, Elizabeth Warren does not have the name recognition that Bernie Sanders now does. Sure, people know Elizabeth Warren, but she's not nationally known to the point where, automatically, if you hear she's running for president or whatever, everybody knows who she is. Everybody's familiar with her policies. Not everybody knows that. So I think Bernie should run, and I think there's no doubt in my mind that Bernie Sanders would defeat Donald Trump. With Elizabeth Warren, I'm not sure. But I will say it now. You don't have to like me. You don't have to agree with me. If it did come down to Elizabeth Warren versus Trump, I would vote for her. I don't think she's perfect, but to me, that is not a lesser of two evils situation. She's 100% better than any establishment Democrat hack. I think she needs a little education as far as the defense budget and the wars. I don't like her positions on that. I don't like the fact that she hasn't come out strongly against for Standing Rock and against climate change and those things. But we cannot be extremists. We cannot say, oh, if we don't agree with one or two aspects of them, we're not voting for them. No, she's not Hillary Clinton. She's not. Let's be reasonable. But needless to say, I think October 15th, 2018 was the first announcement of who's running for president. She's running, period. She's running, period. And before I move on to the next topic, for all 143 of you, because we just got a $200 donation in the GoFundMe. Thank you, Arlene Chambers. That brings us to $11,780. Arlene, you are getting, for that $200 contribution, you're getting a hat and a shirt. And as my business partner Jen told me, until we reach 12,000, every person that contributes $200 is getting a Status Quo swag bag with all sorts of goodies. So $100 gets you this badass shirt. Just came in today. We're going to start mailing them out. The back, if you're coming to this late, this is what the back looks like. Oh, that one doesn't have anything on the back. This one does. There we go. And for my female viewers, here's the V-neck version. I have a niece on the way, so maybe I'll try to order like a super infant one for her when she's born. Excited about that. So thank you, Arlene. We're almost at 12,000. Thank you. That's exciting. So let me know what you think of Warren 2020. Excited? Don't like it? Would rather Bernie? Let me know. And Jen, if you could put the GoFundMe link in the super chat, that would be good. So, Ludo says meh to Elizabeth Warren. Edward says F no to Warren. Victoria, of course, would rather Bernie. Miriam, much rather Bernie. Edward, Bernie or no one. Astri, no, not excited for Warren 2020, but would support Warren 2020. No question if Bernie is either not. That's how I feel. I'm not excited for her, but I would support her. And I think Warren, compared to Obama or Bill Clinton, would be the most progressive president we've had possibly since FDR. And although I would prefer Bernie, if we're going to have a first woman president, which I'm all for, I'd rather it be her than Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. I really would. So, if you've been paying attention, obviously there was a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. Sorry if I mispronounced his name. And basically he went into the embassy, the Saudi Arabian embassy in Istanbul, and never came out. So essentially, everybody has known since this happened that he was assassinated in the Saudi Arabian embassy. And the corporate media suddenly, because of this, now they are starting to understand that Saudi Arabia is, dare I say, not a friend to democracy. They weren't talking about that when Saudi Arabia has been committing genocide on Yemen by using our bombs. We're refueling their airplanes and tanks. They could not care less about the genocide being perpetrated in Yemen, but when a journalist, and I think they should care that a journalist was killed by Saudi Arabia, that's when they care. So today, it's starting to come out that Saudi Arabia is going to admit that Jamal was killed in their embassy, and they are coming up with some fakakta story, kooky story, that he was killed in the embassy, but it was like an interrogation gone bad. Of course, this is preposterous. They assassinated him. It was done at the behest of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and this is nonsense. It wasn't some, interrogation gone wrong. And anyone who believes that, I got a bridge to sell you. Thank you, Robert McMurdy. $200 donation on the GoFundMe. We are now at $11,980. So who's going to put us over 12,000? Can't wait. We're well on to our goal of 15,000 by the end of the month. And by the way, Ty and I are already talking about going back in the field thanks to your contributions. I think you'll like where we're thinking of going. So we'll have more news on that as we go. So all of a sudden, the media is just outraged, totally outraged at Saudi Arabia being a brutal, authoritarian, fascist, basically murderers. Now we care. Well, what about the fact that half the media is in bed with Saudi Arabia? Does anyone care about this? I mean, of course, the media, like I said, don't give a damn that we've been helping Saudi Arabia starve all of Yemen, murder children, dropping bombs on school buses and all those things. Who cares about that, right? I mean, these CNN and MSNBC people, they live in very nice lofts, very nice little condos in Manhattan. Yemen is very far away. Their children are fine, so who cares about Yemen, right? But literally, it took this happening. Look at all of these media outlets that dropped out of some fancy, like in Davos in the desert, I think it was called, some investment conference in Saudi Arabia. Jen, my business partner, put this research together. You got the New York Times, quote, "I'm terribly distressed by the disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and reports of his murder." Andrew Ross Sorkin, New York Times columnist and CNBC anchor, tweeted, "I will no longer be participating in the Future Investment Initiative." CNBC, they're gone. LA Times, Patrick Soon-Shiong, the publisher of the Los Angeles Times, has also decided to skip the event. Okay. Huffington Post, entrepreneur Huffington Post, will also not participate. Fox Business tells the NBC News the matter is under review. Blah, 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 blah. One of their anchors is supposed to be there. CNN has withdrawn its participation in the Saudi event. Financial Times has said they will no longer be partnering with the conference, while the disappearance of Khashoggi, and again, my apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name, Khashoggi, I think it is. So CNN, the Financial Times and CNN, yeah, we were fine partnering, while Saudi Arabia was helping to commit genocide in Yemen. That's cool. But when you kill a journalist, that's one step too far. And by the way, I'm for them backing out. A journalist being killed is horrendous. I'm a journalist. If that happened to me, I would want people to back out of a conference. And my mother would not be happy. She would go to Saudi Arabia and raise hell, my mother, who might be calling me because I'm supposed to meet with her tonight, and I'm going to be late. So she's not happy with me. Halliburton is now headquartered in Saudi Arabia. Why am I not surprised? Thank you, Kay Vinter. Let's keep going. Who else? Bloomberg, that the company would no longer be a media partner. So Bloomberg was going to go and be partners for this stupid initiative conference. The Economist would no longer be a part of it. AOL, one of the co-founders, not going. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So basically, all the heavy hitter media companies were planning, before this happened, on partnering with Saudi Arabia, who is committing genocide. And you know what? As a Jewish person, and I want to pull out my Jewish card, the United States sat there and allowed the Jews to be slaughtered in the Holocaust. And Yemen, although not as many people have died, sorry, Grober Schwarzer man. Jordan, don't you have your wife's black son to worry about instead of making a gay live stream? I don't know which part of that is more ridiculous. A, I don't have a wife. Or a black son. And I don't know what a gay live stream is. I mean, I did get a new backdrop. But I don't know what makes it a gay. I mean, I'm cool with a gay backdrop. Maybe I will put a gay backdrop up. I happen to be heterosexual, but no idea what that means. And that's how you know. That's how you know your YouTube channel is really starting to take off. As I said at the beginning, we just passed 20,000 subscribers. You get more haters. In the chat. I welcome it. Welcome, haters. So, not only do they not care about Yemen, They don't care that we're slaughtering people. They don't care about the mass famine. They don't care. It's when a journalist is killed. And Glenn Greenwald over at The Intercept has more. It's unbelievable at the hypocrisy. Look at this. So you have Carter Eskew, a former top-level advisor of Al Gore's 2000 presidential campaign. He's the managing director of Glover Park Group, which is one of the biggest lobbying firms in all of D.C. He's also, get it, a Washington Post columnist. So the head of one of the biggest lobbying firms in all of D.C. is also a Washington Post columnist. Who is one of those lobbying firms that he's the managing director of? Who's their biggest client? One of their biggest? Second most active lobbying firm for the Saudi regime, being paid $150,000 a month. That's a Washington Post columnist. Which, first off, why does the Washington Post have so many columnists that are also lobbyists? Wow, that really, what a slogan. Democracy dies in the darkness, but not for lobbyists. Right? Oh, the Washington Post. It's terrible. This is it's unreal. By the way, this managing director, who is the managing director, he's an opinion columnist for the Washington Post. Well, he also writes columns attacking Medicare for All without disclosing that some of his clients include corporations with direct financial interests in pharmaceutical companies. But why would the Washington Post disclose that? Hey, half the time the Washington Post writes puff pieces for Jeff Bezos and kind of mentions somewhere in the bottom of the story that Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. But it's not just that. They also have, let's see. There's another one. Ed Rogers here at the Washington Post. Longtime GOP operative. He's an opinion writer for the Post. Well, guess who he works for? He's the chairman of a lobbying firm, the BGR Group, and he signed a new contract that includes assisting the Saudis in communicating priority issues regarding U.S.-Saudi relations to American audiences, including the media and policy communities. AKA, the Washington Post literally has two lobbyists writing opinion columns for them that are making money off of Saudi Arabia, who commits genocide against Yemen. Democracy dies in the darkness, except you're a lobbyist. By the way, this is not even to mention David Ignatius with the Washington Post, who is on Morning Joe all the time. I can't tell sometimes when he's talking if he's dead or not. He's an older gentleman, and he's basically been doing propaganda for the CIA and Saudi Arabia for, God, as long as I've been kicking. Now look at this. He's written articles like this. A young prince is reimagining Saudi Arabia. Can he make his vision come true? David Ignatius, 2 years into his campaign as a change agent in this conservative oil kingdom, Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman appears to be gaining the confidence and political clout to push his agenda of economic and social reform. The young prince outlined his plans in a nearly 90-minute conversation Tuesday night at his office here. Aides said it was his first lengthy on-the-record interview in months. He offered detailed explanations about foreign policy, plans to privatize oil giant Saudi Aramco, strategy for investment in domestic industry, blah, blah, blah. One would have to ask, how far is David Ignatius and the Washington Post head up Mohammed bin Salman's anus? That's a puff piece if I ever read one. And by the way, just separately, having nothing to do with Saudi Arabia, look at this piece from the New York Times. I couldn't believe it. The New York Times, who, by the way, I believe is in advance of the Oil and Money Conference in London this week, co-hosted by the New York Times and Energy Intelligence. This isn't The Onion, folks. In advance of the Oil and Money Conference in London this week, co-hosted by the New York Times and Energy Intelligence, the Times asked some of the participants to answer this question. What are the biggest challenges your industry is facing, and what is your company doing to address them? Here are their responses. Can you imagine a New York Times editor? This is how they would ask in person. What are your biggest challenges as you're destroying the planet, contaminating the water, killing off the wildlife, creating epic, disastrous, murderous storms? What's bothering you at night when you do that? We want to help. Am I being too obtuse? What's bothering you as you destroy the planet? I'm not even going to read that article because it's such propaganda, but I am ashamed to admit that when I was a young lad and I was more and more naive, I once wanted to write for the New York Times. When I was naive and young. I am not that way anymore. But look at this headline. Look at this headline. 5 oil and gas executives in their own words. I mean, why don't you just take them out for a date? Why don't you take them out for a date and do some other things that I can't say on a family program like this on YouTube? It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Kendall NX, $5. Comments on the CNN Biden above Bernie poll. Are you hacking my computer, Kendall? That's my next story. Oh, I have comments about that. CNN poll. Yeah, the poll that doesn't interview anyone under 35 years old. That poll? I mean, Tom Friedman, too, with the New York Times, who somehow, I think in that specific job description, it said, we need to find the biggest asshole in all of the continental North America to write for us. And Thomas Friedman got that job because he has been writing about how amazing Saudi Arabia is, what a revolutionary, on the fringes of innovation, the crown princes, as they're committing genocide in Yemen. And he's just is continued to allow to write this stuff for the New York Times. But this is the same paper that helped lead us into the Iraq War. But yet I'm called, not real news. You have all these independent anti-war voices on Facebook being banned, shut down from Facebook. If you haven't watched this, they just purged 800 pages on Facebook. I'm surprised my page hasn't been purged yet. My page is being suppressed on Facebook. That's for sure. But, I'm just waiting to get purged on Facebook too. So, you got the New York Times hosting oil conferences with these fantastic men and women in the oil industry. You have all these media outlets were going to show up and partner with Saudi Arabia for this innovation or whatever it was, investors conference. And you're telling me that me and Jimmy Dore and Lee Camp, and Jamal Thomas and RT America are the toxic ones, that we're the propaganda? Oh my God. This is like 1984, the book. We're living in dystopian alternative times, folks. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. That's why we're launching Status Quo. That's why. Oh, this shirt smells so good. It's brand new. You know how to get it. I'm not going to tell you again. Go fund me. So, although I obviously feel terrible for Jamal and his family, obviously it looks like they're about to admit that they killed Khashoggi. They're going to come up with a fakakta story about an interrogation gone wrong. Nobody believes that. And then in a few days, the media will go back to what it is, propaganda. They're not going to talk about Saudi Arabia murdering and committing genocide in Yemen. And they're not going to talk about the other atrocities that have happened. Because Mohammed bin Salman basically allows women to drive now. So let's focus on that, which is great, by the way. But, the genocide thing. Oh, well, good luck to those Yemenis, huh? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We are in the twilight zone. We really are. So from that, I want to get into this CNN poll. So CNN did an early poll on leading 2020 contenders. Jen,
Yeah.
can you come over here? So CNN does this.
Camera, though.
You got to come on camera.
I cannot.
Why?
Because I just took a shower.
So put some clothes on.
I'm clothed, but no makeup.
You know, Jen worries a lot about no makeup. Can you tell Jen how she looks fine? Take a seat.
Oh my God.
Take a seat.
I'm sorry, everyone. Don't run away screaming.
And first, tell people all the exciting news going on.
See, look.
Past 20,000 subscribers, our GoFundMe. Give people
just about the GoFundMe?
the celebration.
I mean, it's very exciting. We have people donating left and right. People are donating anything from $5 to hundreds of dollars, depending on, their budget. And it's so heartwarming. I mean, it's like almost 200 people already.
Yes. And we passed 20,000 subscribers, so you and I were very excited about that yesterday.
We
but
were.
I asked you, because I was conducting an interview, can you look into this poll?
That is my hair.
They found that Bernie Sanders, what was the results here? Let's take a look. They found that Bernie Sanders was at 13%, and Joe Biden was at...
Yeah.
Hold on. Bernie was at 13, and Joe Biden was at 33%. They say they interviewed 100 people and blah 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 blah. But nowhere on this poll can I find any evidence that they actually interviewed or polled anyone under the age of 35.
Right. So I actually called the polling company that CNN worked with, and I asked specifically for their head of methodology and they haven't gotten back to me yet. To be fair, it hasn't been that long since I asked them to return my call, but I have to give them kudos because in this case they did include people who are on cell phones, which normally they just include the landlines.
Did your boyfriend Jake Tapper tell you to give them kudos?
Jake Tapper did not.
Okay.
But where are the people under 35? As we know, those are the people most energized for progressive values and Bernie and all that. So, this poll doesn't seem to include anyone under 35. And in some cases, they don't include people under 45. So it doesn't give an accurate picture at all. I can't. This hair's... Sorry, guys.
And I would assume if they interviewed all ages, that would be quite evident in the polling results.
Well, and that's
because
why...
it said not applicable in one area for 18 to 35.
I actually think polling in general is just a sham. Like, obviously, with Trump, it didn't work out. It doesn't work out. It can give us like a compass or a roadmap or whatever, but in the end, people are going to vote how they're going to vote. People are registering to vote in numbers that are just crazy. With Ocasio and Taylor Swift, like people are really getting the younger people interested and excited about voting. So these CNN polls, these polls that come out, they do shape the media narrative because people will run with that, but otherwise, they aren't paying attention. Oh, someone left a super chat just for me. Mm-hmm. I promise I'll brush my hair, guys. All right, can I go brush my hair now? All right, bye everyone. So somebody asked in the super chat, what do you think about the poll? Well, here's what I think about the poll. First of all, we'll get confirmation, but I don't believe that they actually polled people under 35. Don't get me wrong. There's obviously a lot of people over 35 that are for Bernie Sanders. A lot of older progressives out there, so I'm not being an ageist here. But obviously, you can't do a realistic poll on the early candidates, the early favorites for 2020, without talking to people under 35, because Bernie Sanders crushed under 35. So it's like, that's not a poll. That's not scientific. I will definitely have egg on my face if it comes back that they did survey people, a healthy swath of people under 35. But I have a hard time believing they did. Because if they did, Joe Biden would not be at 33% and Bernie at 13%. That doesn't make sense. Secondly, I don't take any stock in these polls because the New York Times, I think, had Hillary Clinton at like a 98% chance of winning on election day. You had Bernie Sanders down 60 points when he first announced for president. So a lot of these polls aren't worth the paper they're written on right out of the gate. So I don't buy it. Secondly, I did a video earlier on Elizabeth Warren probably running for president, whether Bernie would run as a result. I think there is a very, very good chance if Joe Biden runs that Bernie Sanders would probably wipe the floor with Joe Biden because
although the media is trying to paint Joe Biden as some type of like resistance warrior and just what the Democratic Party needs, Joe Biden pushed NAFTA. He voted for NAFTA. Joe Biden authored the crime bill that has put more black men in prison under Bill Clinton as president than any other president in United States history. He voted for the welfare reform, the Iraq War, deregulating the banks. I mean, I could go on and on. Joe Biden, a lot of the same record as Hillary Clinton, just sounds a little bit more populist. But I think Bernie Sanders would wipe the floor with Joe Biden. I really do. I think Joe Biden's time has come. Was he a decent vice president? Sure. I don't think Joe Biden would have the DNC would be behind him and they would try to rig it again. I don't think it's his time, and I think Bernie Sanders has the name recognition now and has learned enough lessons. Excuse me, my mother's calling. I'm supposed to meet her tonight. She came into the city to meet me. I think Bernie Sanders has learned the lesson and would change his strategy based on that to win the primary. So say it ain't so, Joe. Don't think he would beat Bernie Sanders. I don't think he would beat Donald Trump. And by the way, I don't trust this CNN poll. I'm not trying to be a truther or a polling truther, but if you're there is no way that they polled the parts of the poll. It says 18 to 34 says NA, meaning not applicable. So you tell me if that means they interviewed all ages, and it was a poll of 1,000 people in 2018. So don't worry, don't freak out. Borrowing from Jimmy Dore, I don't see it as much of a threat. I do have to wrap a little early today because I did tell my mother. Got to admit, I did tell my mother that I would meet her, and it's 6 o'clock on the East Coast. I want to give you one last update. We are $20 away from 12,000, so if somebody wants to put us over, I will love you forever. I also, just so you know, if you were following, I was in Dallas last week. Ty and I were there covering the murder of Botham Jean. He was a 26-year-old black man that was literally hanging out in his apartment and murdered by an off-duty white police officer. Before I came on live, I just interviewed Lee Merritt. He is Botham's family attorney. The interview was about 22 minutes, so we're cutting that up. We'll put both parts of that interview up on the YouTube channel. Definitely, if you're not getting notifications, click the bell and click all notifications. That doesn't always guarantee that you'll get notifications, but you have to click all notifications to even have a shot. And definitely just make it a habit of checking back. We usually start uploading and publishing new videos in the morning, East Coast time. We will have those interviews up tomorrow with Lee Merritt on Botham Jean. I also reached out to the Arlington Police Department today on a separate killing. While I was down there, I covered the murder of O'Shea Terry, a 24-year-old black man. He was driving away. Yes, he was fleeing, which he shouldn't have done, but he was driving away when a police officer jumped on his car, shot inside 5 times, and killed him. The Arlington PD has responded to me, and their answers were unbelievable. So I will have that for you tomorrow. We're going to have a lot more for you, and Ty and I are both talking now about places we could go now that this GoFundMe is growing. Like I said, right when we launched this, we're not going to be like other people. When we tell you to help support us, we're going to do this, we go and do it. This money is going so we can get in the field, show you and expose the stories that very few are covering. When we were down there in Dallas, like when I was at the Young Turks covering a lot of these stories, every single person we met, after saying thank you, we're like, no one else is covering it. Or the local media is basically just repeating whatever the police or state officials tell them. So it is very important that we get on the ground to these places. I will give you an update this week on other stories we're thinking about going out there. I'll tell you right off the bat, I definitely want to go to Puerto Rico. I think it's an absolute disgrace that over a year after these 2 hurricanes, Donald Trump and the administration has basically left Puerto Ricans to die. I think there has been very little on-the-ground media coverage there because media essentially doesn't care, out of sight, out of mind. I do care, and we want to go there. So that's something we're definitely considering. And I believe somebody just put us over 12,000. Yes, thank you, Ken. Ken, $50 just put us over 12,000, and we're three people away from 200 people contributing to the GoFundMe. So thank you to 197 people. We just passed 12,000. Our goal by the end of October is 15,000, and our overall goal is 50,000. I will try not to hawk this too much, but hey, you can't get things done unless you are aggressive about it, and definitely ask people to support. So thank you to everyone who's supporting independent media. If you haven't seen our videos and our reporting from Dallas, it's all up on youtube.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. If you can't contribute, share the videos. Get it out to as many people as you can. This is what we need. We need to create a grassroots media revolution, because I firmly believe that for us to succeed, it's time to give the microphone back to the people. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.